Hello again. Today we're going to be appreciating music with our ears. This just means so much to me that I brought an extra pair. What will be played today? Hard to say, but sit back, relax, and get those ears prepared as I present to the world an all too familiar track. Could the explosion have been avoided? I should have just stuck to piano.
Music. An everlasting medium. Think about it, can music really age poorly? Who am I kidding? Of course it can, but I think it's much easier to listen to older music and still enjoy it in spite of how old it is. You want me to listen to Rihanna?
No. Moonlight Sonata.
Try to do that with video games, yeah, Super Mario Kart was what started arguably Mario's best spin-off series, but imagine if it was released in 2022 on the Switch and you're now set to choose between this and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Be honest, which would you choose?
We're already living in this timeline.
We live in an era where modern gaming is easier than ever to get into. The only reasons you'd ever want to play an older game nowadays would be to either appreciate its history, or it's still better than what came after. But what if you took this game, and took this track, and made the gameplay revolve around that track? And people say drugs are addicting. Rhythm games, if you don't know what they are, well I've gotta say you might have dodged a bullet. These games are all about taking hand-eye coordination to the extreme with music, making the rhythm of some catchy tunes be woven into the gameplay itself. When you first start playing these type of games, things may seem a bit strange, you'll have to get used to it, but as you play more and more, becoming skillful in a rhythm game can release insane amounts of dopamine. So why not talk about the history of them? My schedule is open today. And so the first question must be answered. Where did it all begin? Oh, you know it's true. Dance Aerobics for the NES released on February 26, 1987, and we've been grooving ever since. Now, I have been needing to exercise lately as the game required the use of the power pad, basically a carpet with buttons. You had to mimic this instructor who kinda moved to the music. I don't have an NES, let alone a power pad in the game, so I can't say I've experienced it, but I can say I've moved before, and that lady moves pretty fast. There does seem to be a rhythm to it all. It may seem a lot more minigame-ish in the same vein of how Wii Fit's Step Dance minigame is, but I think it deserves a spot on rhythmic gaming history. I'll stand outside and protest if I need to, come on. There was even a pad antics mode where you could create your own melodies and even play a different type of minigame that uses the call and response system, which I'll explain in a second. It may be simple, there may only be a handful of tracks, and the states to the music is a bit generous, but it did lay the foundation for what a rhythm game can be at its core. A connection between rhythmic beats and gameplay. Fast forward to 1996, really not much else had come out that tackled what this game tried to do. Excuse me? PaRappa the Rappa, released on the PlayStation on December 6th, 1996, and Japan was mood forever. Press the buttons to the beat or freestyle to make this little dog rap via the call and response tactic, where a computer player does a certain pattern and then you have to repeat that pattern back. I may not have been born yet when this came out, but I can tell that this game had loads of charm that can still be appreciated today. The characters twist and turn like paper, the music has this kind of catchy tone that still feels unique today, and the game's encouragement of freestyling got players to feel like they were truly a part of the show. The game did surprisingly well in Japan, and is basically the one to blame for the explosion of rhythm games that happened in the upcoming years. Yes, I'll continue to believe to the end of time that Dance Aerobics is the very first rhythm game, but I'll admit that if it wasn't for this little dog, would rhythm games even exist? Of course they would, who are you kidding? 1 year later, Konami released Beatmania in arcades on December 31st, 1997. This may have been the third game to get us spontaneously vibing while we're pressing buttons, but the kind of gameplay it had was the first of its kind. Doing away with the CPU's half of the call and response system, it's all about making sure you react to the incoming notes as they scroll from the top. We get these visuals playing in the middle that I can only describe as something I must have seen in a dream once, and the control is all done with this lovely peripheral. You got these neat little buttons and a turntable that for some reason I keep calling a record scratcher. This is what the game controlled with, and what it would have for a controller when it got a console release next October. I would have rocked with this thing had I been born during this period, but alas, I wasn't due for another 5 years. But what about the music?
When I'm happy, I'll make it, yeah.
Oh come on, if you want water, just ask. Well, at least this one's got penguins. Well, thankfully that's what sequels are for, taking the previous endeavor to expand and improve on it, which PaRappa the Rappa also happened to do as well. With the genre having a growing presence on the market, tons of games that took notes from PaRappa and Beatmania would be on the rise shortly after. Drummania, Guitar Freaks, and one of the most iconic game franchises of all time, Dance Dance Revolution. Dance Aerobics is back! An arcade classic, using the dance pad to do what you did on Beatmania, but with your feet instead of your hands.
Finally, I can play a video game while holding my pride and joy. Wait, this is supposed to be the Xbox version!
It's no surprise this became a success, as it was basically the perfect marriage between what the game gets us to do and wants us to do. As awesome as other games were for getting the player to receive the satisfaction of playing certain instruments, DDR took the idea of the player moving their own body to the music and practically perfected it. The music itself was pretty stellar too. As a result, it even get a console release with a dance pad. Again, dance aerobics. Rhythm games were popping off, and the US didn't even know it. Yeah, despite its performance in Japan, they just didn't seem to get anywhere else, mainly due to the cost. With the exception of PaRappa, most rhythm games at this time required very specific controllers that were costly to produce, making the games themselves cost more. As a result, we'd only get games like Guitar Man on the PS2 and Space Channel 5 on the Dreamcast, only using traditional controllers like PaRappa, which, while they've got their fair share of fans, just didn't really spark rhythm games in the US yet. But rhythm games refused to stop, as Japanese development teams continued to pump out different takes on the genre. Taiko no Tatsujin, Samba de Amigo, Vib Ribbon, Busta Groove all would get their arcade or console beginnings during this time period. Nintendo even eventually got in on the fun, partnering with Namco to make the Donkey Konga series using the DK bongos. Finally, it's a dream come true! However, a small American developer named Harmonix, after getting a peek at what was going on in Japan, tried their own hand at rhythm games in the form of Frequency and its follow-up, Amplitude, in the early 2000s. Both of these games involved the player moving along a track and being required to switch back and forth to hit the notes. They didn't really make any huge splash for rhythm gaming in the US, but it did catch the attention of Konami, the company leading the charge on rhythm games in Japan at the time. They came to them for developing Karaoke Revolution, where you literally sing a song and you have to be on pitch to get more points and rack up a combo. Yet even more innovation, we've got our voice now! But Sony released SingStar, which was basically that, but you get to see yourself doing it. Despite releasing later on, SingStar got the popularity vote, which isn't that big of a surprise. What with Sony having brand recognition and money and all? Add in the iToy to make the game showcase you, yourself, singing? It's so goofy. But I love it. But Harmonix was not done yet, as Red Octane approached them with an idea that could further shake up the rhythm game genre. Guitar Hero, the spiritual successor to Guitar Freaks, took the guitar home on November 5th, 2005. This game effectively did what PaRappa and Beatmania did in Japan and did it in the US, as hardcore and casual gamers alike both flocked to the stores to buy a copy and its special controller in spite of its price point. It had amazing widespread appeal, as you could either be playing it to get a high score or just chill out and pretend to be a rock star. And the music, if I may sound like a broken record for a second, continued to be stellar. Over the course of the next year, many things changed. Activision bought up Red Octane and took the Guitar Hero franchise with them to Neversoft to develop instead. Meanwhile, MTV bought up Harmonix to produce the Rock Band series, which brought drums to your home on November 20th, 2007. Finally, the band is complete for $169.99. Even better was the amount of support the games would receive after release, with new tracks adding to the already large library of music, some of which even being from albums that came out at the time. Rock Band and Guitar Hero kept flying off the shelves as rhythm games reached a whole new level of popularity.
There was no stopping this train! What's next on the menu? Oversaturation?
Yeah, it didn't take very long for players to get a bit bored of the franchises. With constant spin-offs further inducing burnout and a lack of innovation, both series would see a huge dip in sales in 2009, shortly after being the undisputed king for a moment. If you're gonna make 25 Guitar Hero games over the course of 5 years, I think people will get just a little bit sick of it. DDR also kind of suffered from this a bit too, but with it being primarily in arcades, I imagine it'd be a bit harder to get burnt out in a game you can't just get up and play from the bed. This was a sign. Rhythm games weren't necessarily on its deathbed, but it was noticeably less popular, as despite how many games were coming out, very little seemed to have been done to innovate. At this point, rhythm games were making their selling point more so about the music it came with or the instrument it simulated, with everything else usually coming down to just hitting the button at the right time. As much as I love doing that, I feel like it caused these games to sort of blend together to the point that one would just pick up a game, play a few songs, have the time of their life, and then move on to the next one unless that game does something radically different. And again, with all these peripherals making the pricing be comparable to the console they were sold on, consumers started to question if it was really worth it. And so, by 2011, Activision announced that they were no longer working on Guitar Hero, and Rock Band wrapped up its DLC support in 2013. They both ultimately got one last entry in 2015, but are mainly used as a platform instead of a game, with any hope of a brand new iteration being kind of lost at this point. Despite this dip in popularity, rhythm games had established itself as a solid genre to develop for, as going forward, we'd see a lot more experimentation and variations of what a game in that genre could be. They may not hit the same level of mass appeal that these two would garner, but if you wanted to play a rhythm game, they fit the bill, if not more.
The way I see it, the appeal of rhythm games is simple but effective, getting even the gamer that just doesn't care about music to care about it. While I imagine some are going to miss the days where you can mimic being a rock star and have a plastic guitar by your side, I think the spot rhythm games are now is not so bad either. Sure, with even more games coming out nowadays, all fighting for your attention and unfortunately falling into that try it out once but never again ordeal, I think it'd be unwise to consider the rhythm game genre as one that's died or fallen from grace in any way. This genre is more plentiful than ever. So many more games came out after the success of Guitar Hero and Rock Band that I could never really hope to cover all of them today. So I'm just going to cover the ones that I have or have an interest in.
Osu, inspired by the Japan exclusive Osu Tatakai Ouenden for the DS from 2005. You click the circles to the beat, hold on sliders, and rack up combos to the rhythm of the music. For 2007, this was pretty cool. It will always be the one game I could never uninstall. Believe me, I've tried. The Rhythm Heaven series, you perform certain actions to the beat with funny scenarios contextualizing everything. Its first entry came in 2006 to Japan, but the series didn't make its debut in the West until 2009. I've only got Rhythm Heaven fever, but this darn Monkey Keep just always has me stumped. Disney's Sing and Pop Hits, basically SingStar but with Disney music. Well, what do I do now? The Just Dance series, you perform the titular action to the music, following the on-screen dancer as closely as possible to earn points. I've only got the 2022 Switch edition, but I can confidently say that Dance Aerobics is back. Groove Coaster, you tap to hit the notes of the beat with the type of note changing up how you tap the screen. It started in the arcade and got console releases. If you like anime music, you might like this one. Crypt of the Necrodancer, you explore dungeons, defeat enemies, and collect loot to the beat. Basically, if Zelda decided to become a rhythm game. Which it did! Super Beat Sonic, the notes are flying toward the player and are hit with buttons on the controller that correlate to its position on the screen. Don't worry, Persona did this too. Voez, you handle multiple tracks as you swipe, tap, and hold notes to the beat. I'm mostly in love with this game's gentle and soothing aesthetic. It's very relaxing, considering that half the time, I'm basically smacking my phone. Beat Saber, the introduction of rhythm games to virtual reality. Notes are flying at you, you've got lightsabers, and everything just turns into this really cool showcase of what virtual reality can be. Just shapes and beats, you're not moving to the beat, but everything around you is, with your primary goal being to dodge it. Muse Dash, you tap the top of the screen for the top notes and the bottom of the screen for the bottom notes. It can't get any simpler than this. A Dance of Fire and Ice, you click to the rhythm of the music, with these boxes being your only guide to understanding that rhythm. I guess it can. Rhythm Doctor, you click to the beat as the music and cinematics take the center stage, basically giving you a full-on animated music video while tapping the finger to the beat. Fuser, basically a DJ simulator where you get stars for being a good DJ. Honestly, the most unique rhythm game, and it might not even qualify as one. Bullets per minute, an entire first-person shooter, but you shoot to the beat. Soundfall, it's Crypt of the Necrodancer, but 3D. Rhythm Journey, yet another different way of visualizing how you press buttons to the beat. Rift of the Necrodancer, taking mechanics from Guitar Hero, Rhythm Heaven, and Punch-Out to create a rhythm game. Scratch and Melody clearly taking inspiration from PaRappa.
And I haven't even mentioned Flash games or arcade exclusives. With games like Just Shapes and Beats and Mixer coming into fruition, the rhythm part of rhythm games has been a bit muddled, so the genre has sort of evolved into more so just a musical genre, with rhythm being strictly a part of games where you have to press buttons to the beat. The music genre is a whole nother topic, so big and so wide that I'm gonna need the extra pair for it. I just wanted to talk about rhythm games today specifically. Let me make that clear, because there's gonna be one guy out there going, "Chris, you imbecile, you forgot about Geometry Dash."
I couldn't if I tried.